Hey everyone, this is Razgrease here from the VRS private media forums, and today I'm going to be bringing you a quick tutorial on the turn from a beam all the way to touching down on the carrier deck. Now, with me starting, I'm going to go ahead and assume a few things. First off being you know how to basically land on a carrier with use of TACAN, ILS, and the meatball. Second thing is you have decent experience and you're not a total beginner, because if you are a total beginner, this probably is not going to work for you because this does involve a lot of different things and in a very short amount of time. Now, with that said, let's get on to the technique. First off, you want to be set up at 600 feet, about 0.9 to 1.1 nautical miles away from the ship when you're at a beam. That is at the back of the boat. You want to be facing in the reciprocal of the heading you took off from, which is BRC, base reciprocal course, the heading of the ship, which might be a few degrees off from the catapult heading. And you want to be at that reciprocal of the heading 600 feet and on the yellow AOA donut, which is also assuming you know that when landing on a carrier. Now, once you are at a beam, you count to about 2 or 3 seconds and then you turn to final. Now, this is extremely important, the fact that your carrier is moving. Static carriers are garbage. Never land on a static carrier in FSX. Carriers in FSX have a 4.0 glide slope. Carriers in real life have a 3.5 glide slope. Now, this is non-modified glide slope. Carriers in real life can change their glide slope for conditions such as pitching deck. Now, with a 4.0 glide slope, that's an extremely steep glide slope. That's pretty much too steep. So we need a lot of wind over deck and a lot of carrier speed in FSX, of course, to try to equalize that out. Now, the turn to final is kind of a tricky turn because you have to position it just right to roll out on center line and on glide slope. But assuming you turned at the perfect time and your turn is perfect, at the 90, you want to be at 550 feet, and at the 45, you want to be at about 450 feet. That is always assuming your turn is perfect, and 99.9% of the time it's not. You're just going to kind of have to eyeball it. By the 90, you should be doing visual anyway. Now, actual landing technique, there's only one way that I know of that's successful that I learned from Lieutenant Commander Rolex, and that is the crotch. Now, the crotch is a specific point on the ship where the bow meets the landing area. I'm not sure the technical names of that, but I'll try to illustrate it here. This landing area meets the bow. Okay, meets the bow. This point right here is called the crotch. You want to put your velocity vector right on the crotch about all the way in, and that will keep you centered ball, assuming you're already on glide slope and settings are correct for the landing, such as moving carrier, wind speed, etc., etc. Now, you're going to have to adjust it a little bit because that is a real world technique. And this is FSX, and it does have the higher glide slope, so you can't always expect the real world to be perfect. Another important thing is to keep it smooth, very smooth. You don't have to be right on the perfect glide slope, and if you're off a little bit, you don't have to immediately correct. That used to be my Achilles heel. I could not land on the carrier because as soon as I would get in close, I would start messing up, and then I would overcorrect everything, and pretty much I'd bolt her every time. You just want to keep it smooth and just pretty much have faith in your plane. It will steady out and do what it needs to do if you do it properly. As for lineup, what I like to do is about the start of my approach. I like to line up about right here on the boat. And then as we keep going in, I try to keep my lineup right on this line. And then right about when I touch down, like when I get probably 0.1 on the TACAN, maybe 0.2, 0.1 in close, I just let it drift over to the center line, and I pretty much land center line every time. Now, I'm not sure how well that'll work for you because I don't really have that known as a technique. It's just kind of something I do, and I don't really take too much notice of it. Um, okay, working the meatball. The meatball, never start with a low ball. This right here is the meatball. If you don't know that, I don't know why you're watching this. The meatball, you always want to work from high to low. You never want to work from low to high. If you're starting your approach at 3/4 mile and you have a low ball, it's generally going to be a bad approach. I would recommend going around, just doing another pattern, coming in higher next time. And if you have a red ball, it's definitely an immediate wave off. You never start with a red ball. Now, I'm not saying come in high and just stay high. You want to work high to low instead of working low to high. Now, I don't mean to just sit on the glide slope the whole time, even though some people I've seen do that, which is perfectly acceptable. It works, but what I like to do is I like to work from high to low, so I have a little bit of room for error. And also, when you're in close in FSX, your plane does like to go up and stop, pretty much lower the sink rate. So that also helps me because I'll let a lot more power off if I'm working from high to low, and my plane will sink down about to where it needs to be. Now, if you have any questions or just pretty much anything, or even request me to make another tutorial if this one was actually decent, then you can go ahead and find me on the private media forums or the VRS forums, and you can send me a PM or just make a public post about it. And that's it for now. See you guys later.